Okay, today we're going to show you a KELLENBERGER cylindrical grinder. This is a model 600U, and we've had this in here and we've done some service to it, took it apart, cleaned it up, went through the hydraulic system, went through the spindle, the spinning, the rotation of the wheel head, the work head, and really cleaned it up nice. It's really in nice shape. This is the original paint. It's currently wired for 440 volts. You have a face grinding attachment on here. You've got an ID spindle around back, which we'll show you in a little bit. You've got a center height here of about 9 7/8 inches, which makes it about 19.8, 19.7 inches of swing, which is a lot. This is a fixed height, so this doesn't go up and down anymore. You have a special KELLENBERGER block there, and these components here are raised up with factory riser blocks. So this is all done at the factory. This wasn't done by somebody. This was ordered this way. So this is their maximum height for this machine. It's also got a live in the dead center. This is a Morse taper number 5 spindle. This can be locked to have a live spindle for a chuck or a collet system. And this is a Morse taper number 2, I believe, in the tailstock. The machine has plunge, rapid advance, rapid retract, plunge feed, and incremental grinding, traverse grinding. You've got fine feed adjustment. You've got a coarse and fine, excuse me, in feed with the hand wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and start this up. The slide comes forward and we start the feed down to 0. At the end of the cycle, the operator retracts the lever. Now, if you want to retract the hand wheel further, this is only taking about 20 thousandths, 30 thousandths off right now. You could put this in neutral and back this up a little bit more, and then your next part will have more. Not more in feed. It's always going to stop at the 0 point. It's just going to back up further. Okay, now this machine does not have a spark out setup on here where after a certain amount of time the slide will go back. We do have other grinders that will have that, other KELLENBERGERs, but this particular one, if that's something that you have to have, this does not have it. You have to retract this manually. Okay, so we're going to go over here and we're going to start up the grinding spindle. The grinding spindle starts up. You got a window up here and you've got oil, squirting oil coming out of 2 little nozzles forming an X. You want to look for that. That's good. You want to see that. When you start here, you start rotating the headstock, and that's variable. You slow that down or speed it up. It has a little dog here that when you loosen this screw and line it up with this notch and push that little dog down into that notch, then this becomes live. And the rear of the headstock, rear of the spindle, there's a mechanism that locks into a notch, so you want to disengage that, and then the whole spindle will spin live. Why? Well, okay, over here on a table, if we can swing our camera to the table, we've got some accessories. This will go into the headstock, and this has a tang inside. This is made for a 5C collet. And then you have a special drawbar that goes through the headstock and screws onto the threads. This has internal threads screw into the back of the 5C collet. And you draw it up tight with the black knob. This is not an automatic collet closer. This is just a manual, one at a time. You got to load your part and hold it. You also have a Morse taper 5, which is what this is. This is a Morse taper 5. This one is a Morse taper 5 reduction sleeve to a Morse taper number, looks like a number 2. So that's good to have. This is the dresser that you're going to need for the grinder. This is some splash guards. This is your 3-point leveling system. These are some ID grinding accessories, some safety guards that people sometimes usually take off but put on the wheels, and then of course you got the manual. All right, so back to the machine. This whole thing can be rotated. Normally on a machine of this size, the 600, you will have to remove the tailstock. So we're going to stop the video and we're going to remove the tailstock for you and show you how to rotate and swivel that head around. So I showed you a plunge grind. I'm going to show you a traverse. That's where you come in and you have your table going. And now each time the table reverses, you'll get your infeed. And you can set this up. Got to get the air out of it. So that it feeds on both sides or only on one side. You also have a dwell that you can set here so that you can have it sit for a little bit at each reversal before it moves over. Gives the wheel a chance sometimes certain kind of work to kind of feed in before you start moving across the workpiece. And of course you can slow this down. And you really want to make sure you get all the air out of the system on this. What you would normally do would be to let this table traverse to its maximum length. Perhaps I should have done that because I'm seeing a little bit of jerkiness, but that's common, and when you see that, that means you got air in the system. And we just brought this in here and hooked it all up, so we've got to really warm these things up and work out that air. So we're going to stop the video here and do all that, and I'm going to rotate this head for you and show you how the ID spindle comes in. Thank you. All right, so now we've taken our tailstock off so that we give ourselves enough room here to spin this around to show you what else it can do. So right now, on the top here, you've got these locking levers that lock this head into position. In order to open them, you have to loosen, and then you can rotate this head. Now you want to make sure that your spindles aren't on. You wouldn't want to grab one of these while they were moving. So in this position, and there is a lock-in point where this will lock itself in, it snaps in, you can feel it snap in, and then you tighten these two levers and it's locked in there. Now this would be your face grinding attachment. Here you would have a magnetic chuck possibly, or whatever tool you want to use. Most people would probably just work everything here by hand at this point. And you can feed across with this hand wheel or feed in. At this point you have your rapid still. Maybe you're going to feed across the face in a plunge mode like this. This is locked in at this 90 degrees and 180 degrees and at 0, but you could actually put it in any position for any other angle. But it does have 4 positive detents for this position, as well as if we continue around. God damn it. If we continue around, I have to unlock it again. Bring the ID spindle to the forefront. Again, we look for the lock-in point. Right there. You shake it and it locks itself in. All right, so again, you might want to work with this with a chuck, faceplate. One of the things about the ID setup now, when you go to ID, you have to change for safety to tell the machine I'm ID grinding. And what it will do is automatically brings that slide forward. So here I was in the what they call the A mode or automatic. That would bring the slide in and out with the main lever. You don't want this to happen if you have this inside of a bore. So in the ID grinding mode, you have to go from A to I. It's very important, and that immediately brings your slide forward. And now when you start your cycle, start feeding here. If you were going to use it automatically, most people again would do this by hand. We back up our stock removal, but we do not back this up. This is a safety so that you don't crash through the bore. You get to 0, You open this up, and now you would come out of the bore. So that's how you would work with that. Again, this is an ID spindle. It's mounted on a block, which is adjustable. These are your pulleys. I'll go ahead and start this up. It's pretty quiet. We have different quills that go into this spindle, maybe 2 or 3. We'll show them in our photos. Start the work head. And that's the KELLENBERGER 600U. This is the coolant system over here. This is a Darnith paper band system. It all wires into the electrical cabinet. It has a float switch here that when the water gets above the level of the float switch, it automatically advances the paper. And that's how that works. So that's it. That's the KELLENBERGER 600U. Thank you very much.